It's Off Exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
We'll do it live right here.
Maybe Jordy's clap was a little too aggressive.
Yeah.
It's all right.
We'll take it. We'll make it work. Right, everybody. We have Steve Dagostino on tonight. I say it right?
Yep.
I know we were just talking about it. I was like, oh, I got nervous right there. So he's a big basketball skill development guy in this area. He's been around for a while, went to St. Rose, got inducted into their Athletic Hall of Fame. Yeah, man. And two-time MVP of the NE10, two-time first-team All-American, and then went over and played professionally in Europe. And then right now you're spending time, high school guys, college guys, pro guys, and then time with Team USA as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So our local stuff, we run workouts and camps for players of all ages from fourth grade all the way up through high school. And then when our college guys and our pro guys are home, and ladies, we work with them. And then I'll be back out. One of USA Basketball's junior national teams, there's a staff of 12 to 15 coaches, and we'll meet with the top players in the country 3 times a year. And then the fourth time will be when they select certain coaches to coach the under 16 and the under 17 teams. And those are out of the group of players from the mini camp. They get selected to go to a training camp, and then that's how they select the national teams from there.
That's pretty cool. How did you get hooked up with those guys?
It's actually a crazy story. So I had been wanting to do it for a long time. The City Rocks, who's the Nike AAU team in our area, the guy who runs it, Jim Hart, I played for the City Rocks. I've known him forever. I help him run their top 24 every year, where they invite some of the best players in the state to kind of evaluate them for the next year, and they get free Nike gear and all that good stuff. So I would help him run this event. In that event, we run a 3-on-3. I do a ton of 3-on-3. We run a 3-on-3 portion, and there happened to be a guy from Nike there who saw it, loved it, mentioned my name to the USA Basketball director. Jim Hart also made a call in, and I got invited to go out, but under the terms of hey, come out, check it out. I don't know if you'll be doing anything, but we'll get a sense for each other. And I went out there for the under 18 trials. Bill Self from Kansas was coaching it. Mike Bray from Notre Dame was coaching it. And we were in a meeting, and they were talking about when they have to go overseas to play. And there's a traveling rule that's a little different than American rules that you see in NBA and college basketball. And they were trying to figure out what the rule was. And I knew it because I played overseas, and I was like, hey, here's the rule. It's XYZ. You can't do this and that. And Bill Self was like, great. He goes, you teach it today in practice. And so we're walking out of the meeting, and the director, Sampson, and his name was like, oh, I guess you're running part of practice today. And so I did a good job, and I kept doing the shooting portion throughout the week. And then, it just went from there.
That's pretty cool. Is that how long you've been doing it then, since that USA started?
Since 2018.
18.
Yeah.
Were you intimidated at all being in front of Bill Self and these big dogs? Or
not really, because I was comfortable in what I was teaching, and I knew some of the guys. So Joe Girard, who played at Glens Falls, at Syracuse now, he was actually at that training camp too. So I was pretty comfortable at the time. I had been 2018, so I'd been training for 10 years at that point. So it was all good.
Because you're from the Capital Region.
I'm from Guilderland. Yeah.
Went to Guilderland.
Yeah.
High school.
Yep.
Yeah, youth sports is a whole different beast now. When did you graduate Guilderland?
I graduated in 2004. Completely different.
Completely different. You see kids now going through this recruiting process. It's a wild world. It's a stressful world. How was it for you?
So my recruiting story was pretty simple. As you can see now, I'm not the biggest guy, right? I'm 5. Right now I'm 5'11". Man, I'm 154 probably, which I need to be 160, 165. But so when I was in high school and I graduated, I was 5'11", 135 pounds. And so I knew before then, I knew I'd have to be smarter than everybody, be really skilled. And so I worked at it literally every day from 9th grade all the way until I stopped playing professionally. I probably only missed in those, 12 years. I probably missed, if I missed 25 days, that's a lot of doing something, whether it was weightlifting, plyos, boxing, shooting, playing, whatever it is. And so I had, going into my senior year, I had Union. I took an official visit at Union, which is a Division III school. I had a prep school that wanted me and a couple Ivies that said if I went to prep school that they would look at me for the next year. After my senior year, I had a really good year. After my senior year, like after the last game, St. Rose came in. They offered me a scholarship. After St. Rose offered me a scholarship, Lemoyne offered me. I took my visit to St. Rose, loved it, and decided to go there. But it's completely different now. So like when St. Rose offered me a scholarship, I knew that I could accept this scholarship and it was there for me. Now, and I don't know how it is in other sports, but at least in basketball, when you get offered a scholarship, it's not actually something that you can take right away unless they tell you, hey, this is yours right now if you want it. So like kids will get offered in 10th grade and you can't actually accept an offer until like 11th. But even when they were in 11th grade and you get an offer, it's the equivalent of when I was growing up of a coach calling you up and saying, hey, we really like you. We're going to continue to recruit you. And that's where like the craziness comes in. So you see these kids like, yeah, I got an offer from, like we had a girl got an offer from Creighton and she's like, yeah, I talked to him like quick after one of the tournaments and they offered me and I haven't talked to him since. And you're trying to explain it to people and they're like, well, the kid got a scholarship offer. And I'm like, right, but they can't take it. They're like, well, what are they offering them? I'm like, they're not offering you anything until they tell you that it's yours to take, which is, I hate it. I can't freaking stand it.
I hate it then, and the kids don't know better. It's what they grew up in. And then they post their offer on social media.
Yeah.
And you're like, I know what this is.
Yeah, right.
But do they know what it is?
So the coaches that I talk to, I like went back and forth with coaches because I have a lot of friends that are in the college coaching community and they all have differing philosophies on it. And I get it from the sense of, right, my whole problem with especially basketball and football at the high Division I or Division I level is it's a business. It's not amateur athletics. It's not. It's a business. So when you take that out, right, and it's not a family, you're not. It's this coach, he loves you, but he's going to get rid of you next year if you don't perform. You know what I mean? And so I think it's, where were we going with that? I lost my train of thought because I'm getting all fired up.
No, I can get charged up too. We got a lot of time left. And I'm down to be charged up the whole time. You don't coach a high school travel team like on the sideline, do you?
No.
Would you ever?
If it was like I would coach at St. Rose. I don't know if it would have to be the right high school job and it'd have to be at like the right time in my career. Mm-hmm. Like right now I have 3 NBA clients, hopefully 1 or 2 college guys that are going to be there in a couple years. And so like I'm in a good spot where I have 4 kids at home. I can work on my own calendar, my own schedule. High school coaching is a lot. It's a lot. And you got to be locked in.
It's a lot. We train athletes of all sports in here, but we have a lot of baseball athletes. And people will ask Dan and myself, would you ever coach a summer team? And I'm like, no way. I don't want that in my life.
No.
Yeah.
The stress of the parents, the playing time situation. I just want to help your kids get better.
I know. Right. It's the best, not to cut you off, but it's the best part of it is like you don't deal with playing time. Like if somebody told you you could coach and you didn't have to, you could just coach, get to know the kids, coach them, everybody's on board. Yeah, you'd probably do it because coaching in itself is fun, but everything else, especially in today's world where everybody is so like freaked out after every pitch, every inning, every game. And you're like, yo, it's fall ball. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, we're playing you should be playing the long game with kids.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it's about. And there comes a time to ramp it up, but not when you're in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade even.
Yeah.
But it's the trickle down from the business, like you said. The Division I scholarship being a business. And then you see this trickle down.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I like to have these conversations with parents, players, coaches, people in different fields. And like for on the basketball side, I try to have this conversation with players and I say, if you're in 9th grade, let's say you're in 9th grade and you're on an AAU team and you don't make a shot the whole season. You don't make a shot. Next year, your sophomore year, high school, play JV, varsity, whatever, you don't make a shot. So you've made 0 shots in a year. You go to AAU of your sophomore year, going into your junior year, you don't make a shot. You still haven't made a shot. You stink. You come back your junior year of high school, you average 18 points a game, you kill. AAU season that year, same thing, 18 a game, you kill. Senior year, 18 a game, you kill. Is any coach that likes you, college coach, going to turn to you and say, well, you didn't make a shot when you were in ninth grade, we're not going to take you? And the answer is always like, no, they're not going to say that. I said, so then who the heck cares what you're doing in games when you're in ninth grade, when you're in 10th grade? Yeah, you want to do good. Yeah, your teammates are probably going to hate you if you don't make a shot for 2 years. But if you play, like you said, the long game and understand like, you're not playing for a scholarship. You're actually, to be honest with you, you're never actually playing for a scholarship. A scholarship is a byproduct of how productive and talented and your potential moving forward. You're not actually playing for, there's nothing that you can do in particular that can get you a scholarship. It's a combination of things over the long term and what you do consistently. And so like when people figure that out and they can say, oh wait, I can just work on getting better and not being scared of failing. Those are the players that can, that take the jump. And those are the parents that can take a breath and be like, oh, wait a second. We shouldn't be like fighting at a 7th grade kids game, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, I think we all chose to be in the private sector, and it's nice because you kind of make the rules and how you're going to structure things. And it's when you're not doing pay to play, you're not coaching on the sidelines, and you're not dealing with playing time. It's easier to take, chill. We're not playing for that scholarship. We're going to work on your development. But most coaches don't see that. Am I right?
Yeah. I think it's right. Like you said, I think pay to play is an issue that can get in the way of that. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It is where we're at, and it's not going anywhere. So, and these clubs obviously need sorry about that. These clubs need some money to play and stuff. But it's hard. That's why it's hard being a coach, because everybody is so strung out because number one, they're paying so much money. So they expect to see a return on the investment. And a lot of times the return on the investment is delayed. And also the return on the investment isn't always what you think it is. For example, when you're coaching middle school sports, it's really like what's great about youth sports in general. It's how players learn how to handle adversity, how they learn how to be coachable, how to be good teammates, how to hold themselves accountable, how to be disciplined to work towards something and not worry about if you achieve the goal at the end. That's the return on your investment. So again, if you're the parent that says, well, I'm paying all this money, I need exposure, I need him to get to college, you've already gone into it in a way that's not going to help. If you go into it and say, this is a good spot for my son or daughter to get experience, to play, to have fun, and then again, if they end up being good enough, the byproduct is a scholarship or playing in college. If they don't do that, they've still gained all these skills that's going to help them throughout life. Mm-hmm. That's how youth sports should be viewed.
100%.
But it's not.
It's not. No. And Paul, you're fantastic with this, with the kids in here.
As far as like
integrating life lessons and
yeah. I mean, and I think with that, that's what I try to, especially when I'm having those college conversations, I try to steer away from talking about the sport and ask them all the other questions that pertain to college. And when it comes down to it, it tends to let them understand that they need to be more than just that person on the court or on the field or in the pool or whatever it is that they're doing. And when they start to think about that, they're like, oh, all right. And you see it click with some kids, and other kids, you may not see it click. They just start chasing that Division I scholarship or Division II scholarship, whatever scholarship they're chasing. They're just chasing that as opposed to, I want to get the best possible experience out of it. And you said something before, Steve, about like adversity and challenges. And one of the things that I was wondering, and one of our other staff members, Connor, asked me to ask you, was like, with today's athletes and like the NIL, the pay for play, unrealistic expectations from coaches, parents, and all that, do you feel like they're more vulnerable to struggling with adversity and challenges than they were maybe like when we were playing, you were growing up? I mean, we're kind of around the same age and everything. So as far as that goes, do you feel like they have a harder time when it comes to getting through adversity and challenges?
I think it's the number one thing. So I think when you look at, and I'll dive into it in a second, but when you look at players, basketball players at least, and I'm sure it goes into other sports, the two biggest skills that they struggle with are handling adversity, so being resilient, and then being competitive. And I think there's a couple different reasons for that. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, again, not saying one is better, it's just different, so we have to adjust the way that we teach and coach. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I was going to the Y. People before me that were going to the park, and you'd play. And you'd play against whoever was there, whether they were good, whether they were bad, whether they were older or younger. And so innately, in those situations without a coach, you have to learn how to, if you're the best player on the court, you got to learn how to bring everybody else up to win. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting for 2 or 3 games, right? You're going to have to deal with older players telling you that you stink, that you suck, that you have to do this. You have to deal with that, whether they're opponents or whether they're on your team and they're trying to coach you. So we naturally, without seeking it, learned all these things. In today's world, everything is organized for the player. Everything is coached for the player. So you go to a baseball tournament, you go to a basketball tournament, you're playing 5 games, 4 games, regardless. They're actually, and I've heard this with AAU coaches, like, we don't play for wins, we play for scholarships. Well, that's great, but like, in what world are you competing and not playing to win? That sets a horrible example for the kid. And so the competitiveness is lost, and then the ability to be resilient isn't there because coach is always there. So like, we over the last handful of years, and it sounds crazy, is like, we go, pretty much everything we do is live now. We'll do a handful of skill work, especially specific stuff on shooting if players need it, but everything is live because it forces you, every time you walk into the gym, you have to raise your level. Because if you're not ready to go, you can BS a ball handling drill, you can BS a finishing drill, but you can't BS live one-on-one, otherwise you're going to take an L and you're going to lose. And then what I'll do with our really good players that really, I know if they can handle adversity, they're going to make a big jump, is we stay on them crazy. And not in a way like, I don't ever yell. It's people think I'm going to be like in the gym yelling. That's not me. I'm like this tone all the time. But I mean, we had a kid who was an all-area player, who's now literally one of the best players every time he's in the gym. He's an all-conference Division I player at 6 foot, has a real chance to, like, he's got 2 years left, has a real chance to be great. But he used to come in high school and, like, we would kill him. Like, playing against the older guys, like, no mercy, taking L's. We'd be playing 2-on-2 with other guys his age, and he'd be looking for a shot. I'm like, you want to be a point guard and you can't pass the ball? Like, you don't even look to pass? Like, I don't know. That seems crazy to me, just like constantly on him. And he's one of the most, he's in the gym every day, one of the most competitive kids, able to handle adversity. I saw him play against a high major school this year. He's at a mid-major, turned it over with 3 minutes left. The other team took it, scored it, took the lead. And so the coach called timeout, and I see him walk into the bench, and I'm like, coach is going to light him up. Coach starts lighting him up. Player starts walking by him, and then turns around and looks him dead in the eye. Coach gets done. He's like, my bad. Gets in the huddle. They're all fired. They come back to win. And so after the game, he had like 22 points. He was telling me how everybody's like hyping him up because he had 22 against a high major. I'm like, bro, who cares about how many points you scored? Like, that's it right there. Mm-hmm. You're like, that's what separates you. So those are the things that, again, it's different, and people can say it's worse, but we just have to adjust how we teach it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, the lessons that we learned, and you build that adversity when you're in the backyard. Jordy, how many times do we get in, when you're a kid with your friends, arguments, fights, every time you play?
Every time.
Yeah. But that's part of it.
Yeah. And like, that kind of leads into another question that I had was like, when, and I guess you kind of answered it, when do you know that an athlete, since you obviously work with a lot of high profile athletes, when do you know that when you see an athlete and you're like, this person could play at the next level, whether it be college or professional? Like, when do you feel like you can see that? It could be, there couldn't be a solid answer to it. But.
Yeah, no, I think you have to, it's over a period of time. It's not unlike like recruiting, what college coaches do when they recruit. So for me, if I'm able to see a kid over the period of however many months maybe it'll be, or a lot of times I see these kids when they're in middle school, and whether they're with me consistently or not, you see them grow, but you know that they have like certain attributes. So like, if I know they're competitive and they're MFers and they love being in the gym. So like the Division I kid I was just talking about, like he's in the gym multiple times a day. So if they have that, and then they are able to produce in games, right? Because in sports now, especially in basketball, there's like workout all-stars, and they look great on the Instagram clips, and they get in a game and they average like 7 points a game, or they don't impact the game. And you're like, I don't know what you're doing in the gym, but it's not translating over. So like, I think it's a combination of those things: the resiliency, the competitiveness, and then their ability to be productive. Because when these college coaches come and they recruit these players, most of the guys they're recruiting are all good high school players, and they have similar numbers. And so it's like, okay, what sets them apart? What usually sets them apart is how competitive they are, right? Can they handle adversity? Do they love playing the game? Are they coachable? Things like that. So those are really the things I look for first, because again, you'll see as they get older if they're going to be productive or not.
So more of like the mental side of it leading into the physical side of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally guys that have been in this area that have been like legitimate high school stars. And whether they've been in the gym once or most of the players that are like that will be in the gym at least once or twice throughout their high school career with us. And a lot of times it won't be a good fit, because I'm expecting like, we're going to push you and I need you to be locked in. And they just aren't like that, again, whether it's good or bad. And so like, those are the guys that like, I don't even want to work. I'd rather work with the 6th grader or 7th grader who like wants to be in the gym and wants to get better than those guys, So to me, it's always the mental stuff first. And then the skill stuff is second.
Yeah. I mean, and whatever your sport is, your natural skill set is going to take you to a certain level. And some people's natural abilities are unreal. But at some point, the psychological side and the work ethic has to come into play. And if not, these guys whose skill set are maybe a little bit less, they're going to start surpassing those guys.
And I don't know, are you a baseball fan at all?
A little bit, yeah.
So do you have a team by any chance?
Yankees.
Okay. So Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Did you watch his documentary?
I haven't yet.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I
definitely recommend it.
Yep.
But what Mike just said reminds me of Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter. When you ask a lot of people, who would you rather have, a lot of people are going to say Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Who has the better numbers, though? Alex Rodriguez. And it's because of the Derek Jeter's mentality.
Yeah.
Derek Jeter's competitiveness. Derek Jeter's want to win and be a part of a team and not care about his individual numbers. And he still was able to perform. And I think that's where, in today's day, like it's whether it's in sports or other things, it's all about me.
Yeah.
It's not about what am I going to do to help the team. And when you talked about like those pickup games, you think back, if you weren't the best player in the team, you had to figure out, how can I help this team win so that way I'm not sitting on my ass for 2 hours waiting for the next pickup game to start, or for next time my team can get on the court. So learning how to fit your role in a team. And Mike and I have talked about our my senior year baseball team. Super talented group of guys. A bunch of guys would have started on other high school teams, but everybody knew their role on the team. And that's what made us a great team and why we did well and won a lot of games.
Yeah.
So I think when I look at that, and I can use a professional example, a lot of kids know the names. It's like when you look at Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez, those two guys, A-Rod, all the talent in the world, but he just didn't have that we versus everybody mentality, which Derek Jeter had.
I think too, like that's what I get so frustrated when when people talk about the NBA, and so like these stars are moving from spot to spot now, and they're like, oh my God, like this guy's going here and I'm like, yo, it's a team game. Like how many times has that really worked in the next year? Only like Kawhi to Toronto is one of the examples. So I think we underestimate a lot of times because it's we love talent so much. We underestimate like Jeter, his ability to make everybody else better by being selfless, and that makes the whole better. So like you may get a better player, you may get A-Rod, but Jeter's going to make the whole even better. I think we underestimate that a lot of times.
Yeah. And there's something about, like you talked about your personal experience, just being a little guy and having to be gritty and have to grind. Like, I feel like a lot of strength coaches like that, Paul. Like, we're a lot of dudes who worked really hard. We're, like, okay at sports. Our work ethic and our grit took us to a certain level. We're like, well, we still want to be around sports, so we'll go in the weight room. I mean, yours took you all the way to Europe to play.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you end up there after St. Rose?
Yeah, so at St. Rose, I was two-time All-American at St. Rose, and then my mom was born in Italy. She lived there for like 9 years, so I was able to get my Italian passport. And so if you can get your European passport over there, it opens up more opportunities because in most countries, most teams are only allowed to have like 2 Americans. It's a little more in some countries, but a lot of them can have unlimited what they call Bosman players, which are just European passports so like if you're playing in Spain, having an Italian passport, you would count as a Bosman or a European player. You wouldn't count against the 2 Americans.
So you wouldn't count as an American player. You counted towards...
Exactly, towards the Bosman. So I had like 5 agents hit me up because typically if you're an All-American at Division II level, you're going overseas to play. But then if you have that passport as well, you become somewhat of a commodity in certain leagues. So I went through 3 agents in 5 years, but the first one was like a big agency. They slotted me in Iceland, which is where I started for about a month until the whole financial collapse. And it's crazy. I wouldn't even know this if I wasn't there.
This was the 2008
And so like the whole economic collapse like started in Iceland. The Icelandic banks went under. They were borrowing like crazy or doing some crazy stuff with banks in England. I remember when it happened and the whole country was like, it was chaos. And so they gave everybody cash, sent them home. And then I ended up going right to Hungary, and that's what kind of kickstarted my career. But it was interesting, man, just being small. Like, I'll never forget the look on, because typically you'll get to the airport, the team will pick you up. It'll be, their sports director, their GM, maybe one of their coaches. And like the look on everybody's face every time they saw me was the same every freaking time. Like, wait a second, like that's the guy? He looks like he should be the manager, like picking up towels. And so that was always something. And I've always been jealous of guys who like look the part. They're 6'5", they fly around. They can mess up 10 times. And everyone's like, no, but he can dunk and he can do this. And I mess up one, like, look at this kid, he sucks, So I've always been jealous of that.
Yeah, there's something about that though, like going through that in the sports world that then carries over to the real world and business tremendously. I feel like it's like, I feel like in here I take all the times, Paul, I went and took ground balls and hit off the tee on those extra days, and now that's me in here. Do you feel like that with your business?
100%. I mean, I'm literally basically just doing so my mindset, going back to the mindset stuff, when I was in 9th grade was like, all right, I'm going to be small, but if I do something every day, I should keep getting better, right? And so in 4 years, like 4 years is a crazy amount of time, I should be close to where I need to be. And so when I got the Division II scholarship and I got to St. Rose, maybe this was a little subconscious, the context of it, but the thought process was the same. I'm going to do something every day.
But your something wasn't always shooting a basketball.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
It's a little bit of everything.
Yes.
So
note that down. Any kid that's listening right now.
I'll get back to that. So it was, I'm going to do something every single day to get myself better. And in 4 years, there's no way that you're not going to be able to tell me that I shouldn't have been a Division I player in 4 years. And I happen to be like a 2-time All-American. And so like the number one thing I think for me, because like it's the default for coaches when they see somebody who's like smaller, it's like, you got to get stronger. Like coaches all the time used to be like, you got to put on 25 pounds. And I'm like a college coach. I'm like, how the hell am I going to put on 25 pounds in like one summer? That's not even like healthy. Like what the hell? And so St. Rose was the only coach who was like, I'm not worried about it. Like, you're going to get bigger as you grow. Like, just don't go crazy. But like, obviously I know you're in the gym anyway, so it's all good. But the number one thing I did was boxing. It was boxing. It just got my foot speed way better. It got my hand speed way better. I think for me, because I was in the weight room like 4 times a week, my biggest thing was eating. Mm-hmm. I just, and not that I'm a bad eater, I just could never put on weight because I was doing too much. I was going from basketball to lifting to boxing.
Right, and your metabolism was probably crazy.
And I was milkshakes, like 5 scoop sundaes from Friendly's, like everything, and I just couldn't do it. So like, I think the other thing too is that mentality of like, you can do more now. And even with our players, I've gotten better at it. My wife's like helped me a ton with it, because like a player will come in and I'm like, man, they had a crap workout. Like, what the hell? And she's like, yo, they probably need a day to like breathe. That's okay. You're not going to get worse. You're going to help you. You're going to help them, because they're going to be ready to go the next day. Their mind's going to be fresh. You're going to get better work in as you keep going. So I wish I had a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
but there's the next level of coaches as this world kind of evolves with youth sports. Is you're right, the craziness and the business side and the scholarship-driven actions that people take are going to be there, but the level-headed parents and kids, they understand the importance of the long game and of the psychological aspect of it. How much are you thinking of that every day with kids?
So during COVID, for the USA Basketball Junior National Team, what they did like once a month is they got guest speakers to come on, and they spoke to us about a bunch of different things. Like one time it was Jeff Van Gundy, who used to coach the Knicks, who's on all the broadcasts. Another week was a Harvard psychologist, and she was talking about how they're doing studies specific to sports, but even more broad, just in college students. And she was saying that the percentage of students that go to college their freshman year and report having some sort of depression and anxiety is near 50%. That's one of every two. And she said the biggest thing is that they feel overwhelmed by stuff that they didn't learn, that the necessities that they should have learned earlier. For example, doing your laundry. Food halls closed. How do I get my food? Little things that, again, everything's organized, everything's structured for them. They're not, most of them aren't surviving on their own. And then you throw in the pressures of, if you're playing a sport, social media, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, family, like all that stuff. Like they got no shot. They got no chance. So to be honest with you, that's like in the forefront every single day.
Yeah, think about us as adults going to work, like going to school, managing relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, parents, siblings, friends, everything else. It's a lot for us who have I think we've built some life skills and understanding and over the years. But yeah, now imagine an 18-year-old.
Yeah, in a new spot.
In a brand new spot that they don't know without their support group, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's a lot for them to handle psychologically, and it makes sense that 1 out of 2. I'm surprised the number's not higher, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know. It probably is, and people just like aren't reporting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's wild. So where did you play in Europe? Iceland?
So
Hungary?
I went Iceland, Hungary, Italy, England, Spain.
How cool is it just to be and live in all those places? I'm envious, man.
Unbelievable, especially when you're there. So like, you're there for like 9-10 months at a time. So it's not like you're visiting. You're actually living there. And so I say to people all the time, like if I didn't have all my family here, I would love to live over there. Just slower pace. Like Iceland is beautiful. That's my number one spot. Like first spot, I'm going back with my wife and kids when my kids are old enough to like go on those plane rides. We're going to Iceland first. Great people, speak English, clean, different than like anywhere else on earth. But they all had a lot of really good qualities. The only place Hungary, like, I don't know if anybody's Hungarian in here, but Hungary was horrible. Budapest, beautiful. One of my favorite spots. Hungary as a whole, food not great. Everybody's miserable. Part of that probably was the club I was with. It was my first year. The club I was with was horrible. So I wouldn't recommend Hungary, but everywhere else was good.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. But the pace of life is so different. Like, I've been to Italy, went there for a honeymoon in 2017.
Yep.
And people said that. I'm like, okay, like you can't change me. Like I move so fast, but you sense it right away and sink right in, and it's fantastic.
It's crazy, like the energy, right? It's probably no different than whether you walk into a gym whether it's a basketball gym, a weightlifting gym, but then certain places of the country, and then outside of the country too, like you can feel the energy, you can feel the vibe. Like you step into New York City and you're like, all right, I got to be there. What the heck am I doing? Why is this person right near me?
Yeah.
But then you go other places, you're like, oh my God, I can sit down for dinner and stay here for 3 hours.
I was just about to say that. I remember the first night in Rome, we got dinner and we sat down and we ate and we finished. We're like, where's our check?
Yeah.
You're going to bring our check? And you're like, wait, no. Like, they're probably
Relax.
Well, their waiter's probably getting paid a decent salary, and they're
Yeah.
like, I don't need to flip this table to get my tips, and then you're just chilling.
Yeah.
Well, I remember you telling me how, because I've never been to Europe, so Mike was talking about how they don't tip in like European countries.
Yeah.
Because the waitresses and waiters are actually paid
exactly.
a salary.
When we have our friends come here from Spain, we live in Boston. They were guys who coach field hockey. It's big in Europe, and we go out to eat, and we would tip. And they would be like, no, like, what are you doing? Why are we giving them extra? I'm like, no, they get paid like $3 an hour.
Exactly.
Like, we got to pay them right now.
We got to help them out.
Exactly. It's a good thing when you go over there. You're like, I don't have to tip. Like, bet. Like, this is great.
Yeah, but it's solid, man. Okay, with all this, here's something that we see a lot. Do you ever feel like there's too many cooks in the kitchen? There's too many voices in one kid's head, and that just derails them or stresses them?
Yeah, I think it does a little bit of everything. I get the chance to work with some high schools. I've probably honestly worked with like 35 to 40 high schools around here at some point during my career. But I was at a high school one time, and the coach was telling me after the session, he's like, and he's been coaching for 20 years. He's like, it used to be when a kid messed up or was messed up, that it was my fault as the coach because I was the only one coaching him. And now there's so many people coaching him that I don't know how he's getting messed up if the kid is messed up, right? And then I don't even know sometimes how to help him because I don't know what he's hearing, let alone the dinner table, but in all these other places where they're paying to go to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so we added, we do our intake forms, a waiver, and a health history. And right before COVID, we added a new one because we ran into a couple injuries that we were kind of confused about. We weren't sure what else the kids were doing. So we had an intake that's like your weekly activity chart. And you got to note down everything else you're doing for the week. Yeah. This should be a piece of art. I should write all these. It's wild. I'm going to go here to lift and work out, and here to PT, and then this trainer, and then this coach, and then this practice, and then that practice.
Yeah.
And you're like,
sometimes you get that form, and it's literally like a friggin' Venn diagram or something. I'm like, what am I looking at right now?
Yeah,
Go
right.
home.
Yeah, like Jordy, when we were these kids' age, I would put like, play Super Mario World, eat 2 Pop-Tarts,
right?
Play wiffle ball. Maybe I'll do 1 inning lefty, and then fucking watch SpongeBob and go to sleep.
Yeah, play a little manhunt.
It's like they're professional players.
Yeah.
It's like they're being treated like the same way that professional players are. And you're like, yo, they're just kids. Even the high school ones, the better ones. So
yeah.
I actually, to be honest with you, I don't care, like, as far as the basketball portion go, like, and I tell all these kids, like, if you're going to go to somebody, I would go to one person. You don't have to go to a million different people. I don't even care if that one person's me. If you have somebody else that you think is better, that's helping you more, and I'm number 2 on the list, just go to them, But I always try to. It's one of the reasons why I'm able to work well with the NBA guys and the college players is I try to have open communication and understand, like, at the end of the day, they need to do. The NBA is a little different because they need to do what's best for themselves individually, but the college guys especially, like, what's going to be best for their team? How are they going to fit into their team? So I want to have that conversation with them to say, like, hey, here's what you think this kid's role is going to be. We're going to work on X, Y, and Z. So whether I get that information out of the kid or the coach, I'm always trying to do that. Same with the high school because everybody teaches things different ways. So I just have to be able to adapt and teach things different ways, whether I think it's right or wrong.
Well, and I think that's important is the relationship you have for you as a skills coach with that player's head coach, or for us, a relationship with a physical therapist, or even a coach, for instance. And I think sometimes with some of the high school coaches or other coaches in the area, it's hard to get a relationship with them because they don't want another cook in the kitchen, essentially.
Yeah, right.
Whereas we're coming from, obviously, in the weight training side of things, we're coming from a different kitchen.
Do you
essentially.
love being a neutral party though to kids? Like, come here and help. I don't care what team you're on,
Yeah.
what school you go to.
It's the best.
I love that too.
It's the best, man.
It's cool to get them in together, although everybody's so connected nowadays anyway. But especially like the AAU world can be a little disconnected. So like it's really cool to have a group of high school boys or girls come in and they play on different high school teams or different AAU teams, and they get together and they're pushing each other and stuff. And you're seeing it and you're like, oh, they don't have a problem with each other. Oh, the adults have the problem with each other. That's the issue.
Yeah.
You know?
Wait, so when did you start your business? Right after college?
Yeah, 2008, before I went overseas. It started with, I had like 2 groups of kids.
Yeah.
I don't even remember how I got them. But I basically did exactly what my workouts were. I put them through those workouts. And then the following year, I started team training high school teams. And so my dad's a high school coach in the area, but he specifically was like, I'm not having you come in until you do other teams so that nobody gives me crap about it. Right. So I worked with Scotia and Shen, and within 3 years, both of those teams won state championships, not because of anything that I did, but again, you have really good coaches that run really good programs that understood, hey, I can bring another voice in for the summer where they're not hearing me yell at him. He's going to say the same things that I'm saying, and they're going to get really good workouts on top of it and have a good connection with somebody who was an All-American in college and played overseas for a handful of years. So once that hit and Scotia started killing and Shen started killing, then it was like we started doing camps. We started getting more high school teams and more players and things like that. And so once I stopped playing in 2012, then or 2013, I just went full time with it year round.
And did you have the mindset like, let's go, I'm going to make this my career and let's buckle down? Yeah.
Yeah. That was like, so I had signed, my last year I had signed to play in France. I'd got married in August. I was supposed to leave like a couple days or a week later, and I was having like a bunch of injuries. Had plantar fasciitis in both my feet the year before with a bulging disc, and like I was just struggling. So I thought I was going to end up stopping, but that was always the plan. The plan was always, okay, once you stop playing, you go from just doing it 2 months or 3 months out of the year when you're home from overseas, so you're gonna do it year round.
Because you're the guy around here. I mean, was there anybody else in this market doing what you were doing back when you got it going?
There was one guy who was a high school coach, but he did it out of his high school, and he only did like a couple groups a week, but nobody full time. And so I think I was the first one to do it full time. I think I was the first one to start doing team training, because typically like basketball trainers and high school coaches, like there's like such a disconnect with them. Same way there's AAU coaches and high school coaches, there's a big disconnect. So it didn't take me long, but you know, there's 2 things that I think is different than what anybody else around here does. And frankly, a lot of people in the country, I've met a lot of great trainers, but there's a lot of really bad ones too. And I think we've always, from day one, we're going to be honest and we're going to provide value. So if you're going to spend $40 to come to a group workout for an hour, you're going to get $40 worth. It's not going to be a BS thing that you could do at home. And on top of it, like I try and tell, like it would benefit me to tell, and people would pay if I told parents you need to be in with me 5 times a week. They do it because they want the best for their kid. But I'm the one telling them like, hey, listen, you come once a week, you've been in here for a month, you've gone to 4 sessions, you have 4 workouts you can do on your own. Like, what are you doing on your own? You know, you don't need to be in here 2 or 3 times a week.
We had to make a rule, Paul. Remember last winter? We had an influx of middle schoolers.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, Paul, like, what are we doing? Like, I like working with them, but I don't want a gym full of middle schoolers every day.
Like young middle schoolers, not like 5th, 6th grade.
So we had to implement a rule. You got to be 7th or 8th grade. And if you are, not more than 2 times a week.
Right.
Because parents would shove them in 5.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need it.
No.
Go play another sport. Go do something else. Go play some pickup games. Go play some video games. Take a break.
Yeah.
But you have to have the morals to say, I'm going to pass up this money right now.
Yep.
And I'll get it back in the long run if we do a good job, if they stick with us. And now when they're a senior in high school, get to college, they'll come in more frequently.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to be in a better position, right? Because at the end of the day, you're trying to help people reach their goals in the future for the long term, for both of what we do. Right. So, you're not going to do that by trying to load them and get them in here, and then you're teaching them not to be self-reliant.
Yeah,
you know,
that's big,
you
man.
want them to be able to come in the gym, put themselves through a workout, and know how to do certain things. You know, so I'm right there with you.
Did you have mentors or a business background?
So my family owns a concrete product business in Schenectady. This year, 2022, is actually their 100th year.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah. So my brother's over there now. My dad and his cousin own it. And my brother was a college coach for years. And then about, I don't even know, like 7-8 years ago, came over full time to the business. So I started working when I was like 12. My grandpa used to pick us up. We'd have to pick weeds all over the place. He'd pay us $2 an hour. You know, a couple summers later, we were stacking 80-pound blocks on pallets. And I would go 8 to 12 in the morning. We'd work in the summers. And then I'd go home, I'd do my basketball stuff on court, and then we'd have summer league, we'd have boxing or lifting. So
There's something to that. I may have told the story in here before, so sorry for repeat listeners, but I kind of got my kind of big catapult in this industry after college when I interned for this place, Cressy Sports Performance in Massachusetts. And now Eric's the director of player development for the Yankees, and the pitching guy there, Matt Blake, is the Yankees pitching coach. It's wild.
It's crazy.
It's wild where they've went. But Eric told me I stood out in the applications for that internship. They take 6 interns, probably hundreds, I don't know, to 1,000 apply probably for each one. Is in my job experience, my dad owned a painting company.
yeah.
And I worked for him since I was 12, scraping windows and just doing whatever bullshit he wanted me to do. And his first ever employee's dad owned a painting company, and that guy was just a workhorse.
Yeah.
And that stood out, and that's what got me in. So it's wild.
It's crazy to me how many high school kids, when I see them in the summer, I'm like, oh, you working all? They're like, no. I'm like, what the hell are you doing all day?
Yeah.
That you can't go work for even 3. I'm not saying go work 8 hours every single day in the summer, but like, dude, you can go work 3 hours a day, especially in the summer. Like you said, it builds. Like for me, it built like, yo, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be stacking block, and you're doing something that you don't want to do in the summer. You're making a little bit of extra money, so you're learning the value of that. It's one of the things I tell my wife all the time. I'm like, our kids are going to work, whether it's at the family business, running registration for me. They're going to do something because that's invaluable, right? And a lot of times when you have a job in high school, right, there's no real pressure.
Right.
Like what job do you have that's like real pressure?
Right,
You know what I mean?
Right.
But you get the experience. So it's interesting to me how many come in and don't do anything.
It builds capacity. Like I think, in the gym, capacity is the thing. What's your work capacity? How much load can you handle? Probably same with basketball. And it's like that's in other aspects of life. Like building the capacity, painting 12, 14 hours a day on a roof in the sun, scraping. Give me any day in here.
Right.
I'm chilling. It's not that.
So what's gonna help you in the long run? Doing that, the painting and the scraping, or having one extra day in the weight room here a week? Like painting and scraping, dude. Like parents, like what are we doing?
That's a great. You phrase it like that.
Yeah.
That one extra day in the weight room isn't going to make a difference. But if you go do this, you're going to build that grit. You're going to build that adversity. You're going to build that mental capacity, that work capacity, and all that.
Yeah.
The other thing that you may never realize, but even for me, like I worked a summer camp. Going back on it, that's part of the reason why I was very appreciative of Mike offering me the job and getting into a field working with kids. I've always liked working with kids and helping kids.
Yeah.
And that started from when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So for me to be able to help younger kids as I've gotten older and still stay involved in sport, it's like you may find something that you're actually passionate about in high school if you go get a job and do something.
Yeah.
Or you can find the opposite. I never want to do this every day for the rest of my life.
It literally doesn't matter what you do, as long as you do something. Yeah. It's a win-win. Doesn't matter. It could be the worst job ever, and you don't want to do that, and it catapults you towards something else, or it's something that you find that you like, and you keep it in the back of your mind, or you figure out that's what you want to do. There's literally no downside to it.
Yeah. You have kids at home?
4.
Or ages?
Oh man, 8, 7, 4, and 6 months.
How do you manage what you manage on the work front?
Yeah.
And that, dude. And was that, I ask this to everybody with kids, was that a hard life transition for you?
The transition is, anytime you have kids is big, and then you just keep stacking them on top of each other, and it just gets like crazier. but we manage it by my wife doing everything. She's a beast. Literally like our 6-month-old, I was feeding her tonight before I came here, and it was literally the first time I fed her. She literally does everything. And, you know, I change her diaper. I'm there, anything she wants me to do, but she loves it. That's what she was born to do. I always joke, like, I wanted 2 kids. She wanted 4 kids. So we just compromised and had 4 kids. So
are you going to get a start in 5 over there?
No. It's always like, yeah, but one more. And I'm like, dude, I'll be dead if I have another kid. So, but yeah, no, she handles the house. And, you know, like I was in New York City Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. And, she was just dominating at home. And, you know, there'll be times when I'm out there, I'm like, man, I'm like so lucky that I have someone at home that allows me to do this, you know, because a lot of people are like, yo, get your ass home.
Yeah, but I think that's a huge thing in small business is your partner needs to be understanding of the goal and the life and what goes into that.
It's 24/7 too.
Yeah, because if not, then there's going to be a lot of stress in life.
Yeah.
Where there doesn't need to be.
Right.
But
Right.
And sometimes they give you that push too, you know, to make that decision.
Sam's listening right now, Mike, I do everything, and I don't want to always do everything.
Yeah.
I had to give Sam a little shout out there. You know, she obviously helped you make that move back home and get this thing started.
She's the one who pushed me to get this started because we were living in Boston, and I knew, like, I kept checking back, like, is there anything like what I want to do in the area? And I looked back, and this is like 2014, 15 into 16, and I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
And then finally, it was probably in like October of 17. She's like, Mike, we're going to move back. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, no, we're not. We're staying in Boston. Life's good right now.
Right.
He's like, no, like, we're going to do it right now, and like, you're going to open the business.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. We're going to do this thing. So what do you have for locations? You have 3?
Yeah, so I own a gym with another woman's trainer. She played at Syracuse. Julia McBride is her name. We bought an old Catholic school in Troy/Lansingburg. So we own that. I lease a space in Schenectady right on Union Street, right by Union College. I've been in there for like 7 or 8 years. It's pretty cool. It's a brownstone building. There's an engineering firm in the front of it. And then in the back is an old Boys and Girls Club gym. So we've renovated that. Floor looks really nice. And then we'll rent out, or we have a yearly deal with Saratoga Catholic right on Broadway in Saratoga, where we'll run sessions a couple times a week there in the spring and the fall. We'll run our camps there in the summer and do some camps there in the winter as well too. So I'm looking for another spot in Colony. That's like ideal, just right in the middle of everything, like a little small space. But I think that would be the goal right around here, to have like 4 spots. Those are like the main hubs. Clifton Park's already kind of taken because Impact Center is up there and it's killing it. So yeah.
Yeah. When did you start working with Kev? Because he's been killing it.
8th grade.
Wow, man.
So, which is crazy. So like when he was going into 10th grade, he was only like 6'1" when he was a freshman. So like going into 10th grade that summer, I think he must have been, maybe he's like 6'3", he's like grown a little bit. And he takes the basketball full court, throws a left-handed pass cross court on the money to somebody streaking in for a layup. And I turned to the guy next to me. I'm like, yo, Kev's going to be in the NBA. And the guy's like, yeah, right. Like Kevin Huerter. I'm like, dude, he's going to be 6'7". You saw the pass he just threw. And he shoots the crap out of the basketball. And so so you could see again, right? Like potential, work ethic, like all that stuff, that he had a shot. And then, you know, at Maryland, I remember when he had a good year, he was thinking about testing the waters. He wasn't even sure he was going to come out, went to the combine and killed the combine. And then after the combine, it's like, I have to stay in. I'm going to be pretty much guaranteed a 1st round draft pick. But it was just interesting to see, because there's you guys know this, right? There's like so many different things that can happen from high school to being a pro anything. You have to be lucky along the way. You have to put yourself in good situations. And at the end of the day, like, you have to perform. And he's always performed, and he's gotten better each year. And hopefully he continues to do that in Sacramento too.
I say he just got sent to Sacramento.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Wish him the best out there.
Yeah, no, he'll be fine.
He'll be good out there.
Yeah,
it's a tough spot to be, but he'll be good out there.
Yeah. That's cool to see. That's playing the long game with somebody, though.
Yeah, exactly. And, he always had good people around him. You talk about like doing stuff on your own. My dad says this all the time. Like, for a lot of these kids, they don't need to go and see more people where they're paying to go. They need to spend more time, whether it's with their friends or their parents, right? Like playing and doing stuff on their own. And like, I know for Kevin, his dad was a great player at Siena. And so like, they were always doing basketball stuff within the family. And, those are the things that are like separators for guys, like the hours they put in on their own. So he had a lot of good people around him.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about different levels. So like in here, if you were to think about like the training priorities, if you're a middle schooler, it's like just learn to move well.
Yeah.
Good technique, learn to control your body, get in good positions.
Yeah.
When you're in high school, let's start to load those positions. Let's get a little bit stronger. Let's put on muscle.
Yeah.
When you get to college, I would just say it's time management. And then the pro level, it's all about recovery. That's how I would list it. On the basketball front, do you have priorities at each of those levels?
Yes. So we do like a little ballers program, which is like second and third grade. So I would say like second, third grade, we're having fun. Try and teach them one thing, get them to pay attention for an hour and have a ton of fun. When you start getting like fourth, fifth, sixth, its priority is still having fun, but you're starting to teach some of the skills and getting them ready to start being competitive. And then I would say there's like an overlap with sixth grade, like with the better sixth graders and ones that aren't as serious about it. But like sixth grade is really then you start building into like being competitive. So teaching them a big thing at our camps is like, I tell them up front, like, you're going to lose this week. All of you are going to lose. You're going to mess up. Like I'm going to mess up a ton. We're going to work on how to handle that. We're also going to work on how to win. So like those would be the priorities as they start to become competitive. And then you start having the conversations of like, okay, you want to be a starter on your team or you want to be one of the better players. You have to work towards that. That's a goal. So you have to put in extra time, extra effort, right? When you're in the gym, even sixth, seventh, and eighth grade is tough to get players like they're still kids. They don't know. They don't even know what hard work is most of the time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so like, again, they may need time off and their parent isn't giving them that, but like you start building in the habits of how to work, what you're doing, start teaching them a little bit about the game. And then once they get into high school and they decide like, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to go all in and I want to be X, Y, and Z. And for some of those guys, it may be just making their team, right? And for some guys, it may be they want to be the best player in the area. Then you start talking to them about, okay, it takes what it takes, but here's a good vision. Here's a good path for you to get there. When you come in, make sure you're doing X, Y, and Z and this and that, and then we get after it. And that path is different for everybody, but it's very much, for me, it's fun because, like, think about this. When you guys were in seventh grade, were you guys going into a gym to get trained by a personal trainer? I wasn't going to a basketball trainer, right? So the fact that they're even doing that in its sense is a plus because they're getting this experience. They're getting a jump start on, having the knowledge that you guys are giving them in the weight room, having the knowledge we're giving them on their court. You don't need to be yelling at them to like, go harder, do this. They're in sixth or seventh grade. They probably shouldn't even be there. They should be doing shit on their own. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the priority. And then once they get in high school, like I said, you gauge it. Because there are some guys that are like, listen, I'm going to come in and I'm going to get my work in and here's my workload, and you try and push them. That's why live helps. But they're going to be here no matter what, no matter how hard you yell at them, no matter what you do. And that's just them. And so we have to try to gauge like, okay, everybody's different. How do we get them to where they want to be within their personality? And then how do you get them out of their comfort zone and all that stuff?
Right. Well, and that's similar in here. You'll see certain people, the way they work out or weight train, they get to a certain point and like they're gonna stay there, but you can get them better still. And then you'll see the other people that'll they'll be like a dog in the gym and just get after it no matter what every time they come in. Yeah. And no matter what you tell them to do, they'll go. If I told them to put their head through that wall, they're gonna put their head through the wall.
You know what's funny about it too, and I've learned it's taken me a long time to learn this, but it used to be like kid would come in and you tell them, hey, if you don't play harder, like you're not gonna be able to play on this team or do that and that, and then it would happen, right? The kid wouldn't play hard and the coach would sit him or whatever. And I'd be like, well, I told that kid. And then finally, like, I'm in the realization, I'm like, dude, we don't learn from people telling us stuff. Like, think about yourself as a kid. You learn from people telling you, and then you go out and experience it. And then you say, oh, crap, That's what they were talking about. And so and I think parents have that a lot too. Well, I told Johnny that blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, but when you were a kid, your parents told you too. And then you went and you screwed up. And then you said, oh, crap, here's what I have to do to change. Right. And so some people get it like, hey, here's what you have to do to get better. And they're like, bet, I trust you, I'm going. But others are like, nah, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. Or they make these subconscious choices or maybe conscious choices sometimes. And then they mess up. And then hopefully that it triggers it. And for some guys, they mess up again and again, and it doesn't trigger. And some guys will never get it, right? But some guys get it after 2 or 3 times, some right away. So I think that's been one of my biggest things with coaches too, is like, just let them hear the right things over and over again. And hopefully within their experiences, they'll remember it and they'll say, oh crap, here's what I should have done.
But to be able to get there, you have to have self-awareness yourself and be able to be in tune with others. Yeah. Not all coaches can get there.
Yeah. I think it's hard. What I found with a lot of coaches is they're constantly like in competition with other people, and even sometimes their players as well too. Meaning, like, it would be easy for me to say, I was a D2 All-American. Like, look at this kid who got a scholarship to whatever, name any low major, Wagner, or I don't even know, Maine, right? Like, I was better than that kid. And now all of a sudden, like, you're treating that kid different because that's how you're thinking. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, for me, the best thing about USA Basketball is they bring leadership coaches in and they do these really cool things for us to build us up as coaches. And like the number one you see, and these are the best high school coaches in the country that are assembled here, and none of them have an ego. They're all humble. There's a sense of humility, and you realize, like, yo, it's not about you. Like, guess what? Kevin Huerter would have been in the NBA whether I was in his life or not. I'd like to think that I enhanced it a little bit, and especially now as we've gone closer and done more in the off seasons in the NBA, and I can really help him with detailed things and focused on him. Like, yes, there's a value that I provide to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have me around. But these guys that are at that professional level, if they went to another trainer, you know what, dude, they'd be just fine. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think a lot of times we think it's all us. Yeah. It's all us, and it's not.
Well, and that's one thing too, though, is like the best, whether it's a coach in a sport or a personal trainer or a strength coach, like we are here with the kids, your goal should be like to get them better. Yeah. Right? Like that should be what your goal is, not to compare yourself to them in any way, shape, or form. Like my goal was always like, I want you to be better than I was.
Yeah, of
like,
course.
Like that's, and you know, I have younger brothers, and you know, I want them to be better than I am. Yeah. Am I jealous of some of the things that they have access to as a youth athlete? Yeah. Absolutely. Like I didn't have access to a lot of things that they have access to, but I'm happy for them, and I want them to use it to their advantage and be better than I ever was at whatever sport or whatever it is that they do. Yeah. You know, and I think that's where, as a, you know, strength coach, I always put the kids in here, or when I was in New York City, I put my clients before myself. If I was in the middle of a workout or whatever, it's like that'll come, I'll get that done. I'll get it done regardless. Yeah. I got to help you with this, you know? Yeah. And that's where, you know, in here we do it. We work out sometimes with the kids in here, and we stop our workout. We go help them with what they got to do. We come back and do our workout. Yeah. And, you know, it's balancing that and understanding that, you know, they come before you do. Yeah. And that's really what it is.
Yeah, 100%.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Do you see, so you started this in 08, really got going in 13.
Yeah.
Do you see the sports specialization being way more now than it used to be?
I think definitely from when I played.
Okay.
I'm horrible at remembering things because I'm like so like.
But what
lasered in.
else did you play growing up?
So I played when I was younger. I played basketball, soccer, and baseball, all on teams, and then I would golf. And then when I got into high school, it was basketball and golf. And then after the fall of my sophomore year, it was just basketball. And so I didn't start focusing completely on basketball until 10th grade or whatever. But it's interesting because like for me, passing and being a good teammate are like two of the things that I did best. And for me, my passing is 100% from soccer. Learning how to put the ball in a space, letting players run on it, finding different angles. And I saw we were training we had like a small group of 4 players, and we do these different one-on-one games. And one of the one-on-one games was the focus was getting open, and like the more space you had to get open, the better chances you would have at like winning. And so players are shooting, they're grabbing the rebound with the defender, passing it out, and then they have to run outside the 3-point line to find space and all this. And everybody was doing a good job. And then we had a kid who's a really good basketball player, but he also plays football. He's a wide receiver. And he was the only one that would get the rebound, throw the basketball out, start running to the left corner, and as the defense started running there, he'd cut back hard and sprint to the right corner. And I'm like, he's going to win this drill and be better at cutting. Zero of it has to do with what he's done on a basketball court. And so like there's really value in you know, again, right? You would think, okay, if I play basketball every day for the whole year, that's going to help me. And it's really like sometimes you need to do something else that is going to resonate, whether it's being like if basketball players went and they were wrestlers, right? Or played football, you'd instantly probably be a little bit tougher. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's guys that only play basketball that you can never get him to be tough on the court. You're just not going to do it because you need to go to the extreme of somebody tackling you and wanting to rip your head off, you know? And so to answer your question, I would assume sports specialization has gotten worse. I think it's only going to continue to get worse. You know, I see it now. I help with some AAU clubs and like fall sports, right? Like football just started, soccer just started, all those just started. Youth basketball starts September 24th with tryouts. When I found out, because my daughter's just getting into it, I'm like, isn't soccer only 4 weeks in or 3 weeks in? Mm-hmm. And we're already, and so like, and they're going 2 times a week, games on the weekend. So it's like, what are you know, I remember my parents being like, oh, you're going to do one thing. And maybe there was like a little bit of overlap, like 2 weeks.
And there's a spring sport conflict as well, or am I wrong, with travel?
Well, yeah, because it's AAU.
Right.
AAU, which people say is more important for exposure and scouting at the high school level than the high school season. It's impossible to play a spring sport in high school and play AAU as well at the highest level.
Yeah, well,
you know,
if you were in charge of setting optimal AAU schedule, how would you do it?
So I just had this conversation with a parent yesterday. So like for the youth players, you'd go through your high school season, your winter season with your club team, and then typically like because everyone's jazzed up at the end of the season, right? March Madness is coming up. It's still basketball. A lot of them would like to extend it for another 2 months. So you go play AAU at those age groups for 8 weeks. Go to 4 tournaments. You get 16 to 20 good practices in. That's pretty good. Then you're right at the end of, what's that? March, April. You're like right at the beginning of May. Baseball starts up at the youth level. You can go outside, all that good stuff. So that's ideal. High school, I don't know how you do it. I mean, really, to be honest with you, the way you do it is people start understanding that you don't have to go play in 10 tournaments when you're in 9th grade or even 10th grade because nobody's looking at you. Mm-hmm. If you're being looked at, you're one of the top 100 players in the country, 150 players in the country. So if that's you, yeah, go play on the Nike circuit and Under Armour and this. But until parents and the information gets, you know, funneled down to the parents of like, nobody's looking at you in 9th or 10th grade. Like, it's okay if your kid wants to go play baseball. You can supplement with basketball. You can get them in the gym twice a week to shoot on the shooting machine and keep a ball in their hands, and they can do their ball handling at home. They're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll have girls in here who will come in on a Monday and go, I just played 5 games on Saturday. I'm dead.
Yeah.
That can't be. That's
crazy.
not right.
No.
Yeah. They've changed it so that, like, most of the time I think it's you can't play more than 2 or 3 games in a day, but that's like at legit tournaments. And most of the players aren't going to legit tournaments, you know? It's a huge hazard. I mean, you guys would know better than me on the body side, the physical side, but increased injuries, overuse.
Yeah, the more fatigued you are, the more, movement compensations and flaws are going to show themselves, and then the higher risk you are for injury.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, why do they do it like that? So you can get your money's worth in a weekend and play that many games?
Yeah, so it used to be you'd go to a tournament and there'd be pool play, so you play 2 or 3 games, and then it'd be just a bracket. So whether there's 8 teams, 16 teams, let's just say there's 16 teams move on to the championship round. To win it, you got to win 4 games, 16, 8, 4, and then the championship game. So typically that would be on like the last day. So you're playing like 7 games, and it's just that's how the tournaments were. Also, it gives college coaches, when you go to the live period tournaments, it gives them more opportunity to see the players. So they're playing in more games.
That's what when you brought up earlier, it's crazy to me how I feel like when we were growing up, your school season was what got you noticed.
Yeah.
Now it's even like you brought up AAU. Baseball's the same way. Softball's the same way. I think every sport for the most part, other than probably football, because there isn't the travel football teams.
If you're a really good junior or senior, or junior, I guess more importantly, is that where you have a better chance of getting seen and making college connections? Is that on the AAU circuit in high school?
Yeah. It's just easier for the college coaches because they all go in like, in Atlanta, there'll be an Adidas tournament, an Under Armour tournament, and like a non-shoe circuit tournament all on the same, or I should say event, not tournament, on the same weekend within the same area. So Albany can send a coach there and they can hit 3 tournaments and literally see thousands of kids. The trade-off is that the basketball's worse. So you're basically seeing them in a pickup game where they're not scouted. They're typically not playing like any sort of defense or running any sets because they don't practice every day. So, again, that's something the college coaches got to figure out. But that's the trade-off. You get to see them all in the same spot, Yeah,
it just blows my mind because I feel like when we were growing up, like the recruits were able to go during the season, even though they were playing. And now it's almost like, are they becoming lazier because they want it to be easy for them to go find recruits as opposed to let me travel around and go see everybody. And I think
they got to all travel. But I think part of it is, right, isn't that how it shakes out in the recruiting? So the ones that are lazy, that don't do their homework and go fact check, like I always say, things are going to get fact checked during your high school or prep school season. So like you go to an AAU tournament, you can have a good weekend. Average 17 points a game. Then all of a sudden you go to your high school team and you're coming off the bench and scoring 7 points a game because you got a bad attitude and you don't shoot a high percentage, or the other team scouts you. So I think the good teams are the ones that it's both. It's both.
They start with, I'm going to see this person at this tournament, but I'm going to double back and check what they do during their high school.
100%, because that's more reliable. You get a sense of the level of player. They're getting scouted. There's a coach with them every single day.
How they fit with a team.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking about, Paul? Remember that lacrosse camp we worked a few weeks ago? We worked this Casey Powell lacrosse camp, and it was middle school athletes. And at that age, at his camps, he doesn't play full field lacrosse with them.
Yeah.
No,
he calls it speed lacrosse. It's a small-sided game. Smaller field, only 3 guys, and no referee, and you just go. Mm-hmm. Is there a place for that in basketball at younger ages?
Yeah, it's 3-on-3. Yeah. And so like FIBA 3-on-3, which we've done, I definitely was the first person around here to do FIBA 3-on-3. It's basically, if you picture regular 3-on-3, we check the ball up top. We play. If you miss, you grab the rebound, clear it outside the 3-point line. But if you make it, typically in a 3-on-3 game, let's just say you're playing winners, you'll take the ball out of the net, you'll check it back up top. In FIBA 3-on-3, it's continuous. So I make it, and we'll play winners. So if my team makes it, defense doesn't touch it, we grab it right out of the net, clear it like a miss, and play. So like if you're sulking because you got scored on, we're pass it behind the 3-point line, one reversal, another 3 is going up in the air. So a lot of the stuff that we've done, and this goes back to kind of like our whole conversation, is getting kids to be more competitive, putting them in situations where they're going to have to face adversity. we go almost exclusively live. So whether it's 3-on-3 where they're working on different actions, or if it's we do like with Kev all summer, we did 1-on-2 finishing, and one of our interns had like a padded bat that they would use. So he's getting those situational reps, small-sided reps, but they're game-like, you know, and we're he's recapping possessions. Oh, I should have did this. Oh, this worked for me, and it's registering in his head. That's really, to me, that's where training, at least for me, I mean, that's where my training has gone. Is kids need to know how to play. They need to do it in live situations. Yeah. Like we say when we play 3-on-3. You know, like kids that want to get better at dribbling the basketball. I'm like, dribble the basketball. When you catch it, dribble as hard as you can to the paint. That's where you want to get to. You want to get to the paint and ultimately the rim. So if you want to work on your ball handling, do it now. These shots that you're getting where like typically in a 5-on-5 game, maybe in AAU where they're down by 3 and the coach doesn't want them to shoot it, like you're shooting that shot if you're open.
Think about how many more touches you're getting in the 3-on-3.
Way more touches.
Well, think about, so we see it with speed lacrosse. Now you're talking 3-on-3. Think about like South America and soccer.
Futsal.
Yeah. Well, and one of my favorite things, one of the coaches at that lacrosse camp said on one of the days, the kids, I don't know if it was after they got done with a water break or at the beginning of the camp, the kids threw their sticks down. Each of them, they threw the sticks to each side or whatever, picked their teams, and they started playing a pickup game.
Yeah.
And the guy that was running the camp was about to go over and stop them and start the camp, and he stopped him. He's like, no, let them go.
Yeah, right.
Let them play.
Yeah.
They played for like 40 minutes, they said.
Yeah.
And they said it was some of the best, like, just pickup lacrosse that they've seen, and the kids learned. They had a great time, and I think that was a big thing that when I was there, these kids all just had fun. Yeah. Every single one of them was having fun, and I was like, this is fantastic. And it's a competitive lacrosse team that they were going out for, but they were all just having fun.
Yeah.
And I think that was what I loved most about it was you're not just talking about, okay, this is a high level 7th, 8th grade lacrosse team.
Yep.
We also want to have fun while we're playing, and we want to teach you at the same time.
Right, like kids are going to have fun when they're playing.
Yeah.
You can learn while you play. Mm-hmm. You just have to make sure as a coach you're asking the right questions and emphasizing the right things and things that you want them to do. But I think that's like, right? Like that's the missing link. Mm-hmm. That's the missing link.
And just think back to when we practiced. When did you have the most fun in practice? When you got the scrimmage.
Yeah.
You didn't have fun when you were doing shooting drills or running plays or in baseball. Like, I mean, I love taking fly balls in baseball, but if we got to scrimmage, like that was the more fun part.
Right.
You know, live ABs, like that was the more fun part of practice as opposed to, okay, let's go do this drill. Let's go over this first and third play for 3 hours, which we did that.
Yeah.
Or let's, go over the shooting drill for these plays. It's you always look forward to the scrimmage and actually playing.
Right.
So that's got to be incorporated more. I like the 3-on-3, and you talked about, you get the miss, it goes right back out.
Yeah.
Well, that's how real basketball is played. The ball goes through the hoop, the team takes it out of bounds, they throw it up the court, and if you look at the way that basketball is played now, it's so fast paced.
Yeah.
Teams are just like trying to get up the court as fast as possible.
It's interesting. We'll take the 3-on-3 and we'll go, typically you'd break up into, let's just say like 3 teams, and you keep standings, what teams won the most games. What we'll do sometimes is I'll write everybody's name on the board and I'll have wins and losses. And so like every 2 games we switch the teams. So all you're doing is keeping individual wins and losses. So it's like, oh, Mike, you think you're the best player in the gym? Like, okay, you came in 4th today. So the best player in the gym can't make anybody else better, and you came in 4th.
I love that. That's a great great concept.
And so like just different ways to do it so that you're emphasizing you're emphasizing different things every single time. But they're playing and you almost like you're tricking them into things,
Well, it's almost like you're tricking them. They're thinking about themselves individually, but you're tricking them into thinking about the team.
Exactly.
By like saying, oh, you think you're the best player, but you finished 4th or 5th. Why couldn't you finish 1st with anybody on your team?
Right. Yep, exactly.
Do you have an NBA team? Favorite growing up?
No, I used to watch the Knicks all the time, and then I was a big like Steve Nash guy. So I liked watching the Suns. It's just so hard in the NBA because players move all over the place that it's hard to like one team. For the past, obviously I'm gonna like whatever team that Kev is on. So I must have watched 200 Hawks games the last 4 years, and they were horrible the first 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So it's funny. I was telling him we were out in Vegas doing some workouts for Summer League, and I was like, man, there's no way I'm staying up 50 times this year to watch the West Coast game. Like I'll watch it in the morning on League Pass, bro, at like 6 a.m. But obviously I want the Kings to do really, really well. I'd like our guy Cam Thomas for the Nets to get a lot of time this year, and the Nets to figure their stuff out.
Does Katie have a home yet?
Yes, he's staying.
He's staying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They announced that. Earlier this week.
So who knows?
Who knows? I mean, he could be gone in a week.
Exactly. It doesn't.
Especially, and it's funny you bring that up because I'm a Bulls fan. I grew up a Bulls fan. But I do find myself more rooting for players. I root for the Bulls. I love Zach LaVine.
He's tough.
Love what we have on that team. But I'm a LeBron fan. I grew up, I was 13 years old when LeBron was drafted. I started following when I was 11.
Yeah.
So I've never been a Lakers fan. I was a Kobe fan, but I wasn't a Lakers fan.
Yeah.
I actually hated the Lakers.
Yeah.
But I would find myself rooting for them because I'm a LeBron fan.
Yeah,
I want LeBron to be good.
Does LeBron just want to play with his kid? Is that what he's waiting
I think
on?
that's like the goal. I don't think he just wants to do that. You know what I mean? But
I think that's a big thing.
His son is tough too.
Yeah.
He's good.
Where is he now? What year in school is he?
I think this is his last year, senior
he's a senior year, right?
Yeah, and then he'll go to college next year. That's why they're saying it's like 2 years, and then hopefully he'll be good enough to.
And then his younger son, I saw.
His younger son's like bigger and
it's
taller.
already
and
bigger
stuff.
than the older son, and
Wow.
they actually got to play together.
Yeah.
Overseas.
They went on like a European tour.
They went on a European
which
tour,
is
and
pretty cool.
LeBron got to see his sons play on the same team, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a once in a lifetime guy. So you get Tom Brady in football, and
I know.
Jeter in baseball. And,
I know.
It's pretty cool. Some of the professional athletes we've gotten to see in our lifetime.
Yeah, you know what I'm not going to see? Space Jam 2.
That's fair.
No,
fair.
I never saw that.
No, get out of here.
I mean, I wore my Space Jam shirt on purpose. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we're talking to a basketball guy. I got to wear a basketball
exactly.
shirt.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's cool to see young, like even when I think of Major League Baseball, there's so many guys now that we watched growing up, and their sons are now playing.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see. Like especially like Blue Jays have like 4 or 5 guys on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bichette, Biggio, Guerrero.
And
Biggio used to be my guy.
The guy,
'Cause he was
dude.
I was a second baseman too. I used to love him, dude.
Biggio was a beast.
There was Biggio. Who else back in the day? Allen was as soon as Roberto Alomar was smooth. He was an Indian.
Yeah.
Omar Vizquel, he was a shortstop, but he was smooth on the other side of the pillow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just thinking back to 2001 Topps, the gold outline baseball cards, and I'm just recalling all the guys from that.
Listen,
Ichiro's rookie year,
Ichiro.
Yeah.
Oh man.
My guy was Chuck Knobloch, and then he
couldn't throw.
He couldn't throw anymore. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get a new guy.
Dude, I remember that. I was like, how did you just all of a sudden not learn? Like, how do you unlearn
Then he went
throwing
to
to first
Kansas
base?
City and moved to left field.
Yep.
Crazy.
But it was funny because listening to the Jeter documentary, I think they touch on it because I think Knobloch's in it. And we had a woman on who does she does sports therapy, psychology and whatnot, and a lot of it came down to like that. There was
100%.
something that was wrong.
She calls it loss of movement syndrome, or
Yeah,
like the
that's what
yips
it
in
was.
baseball.
Yeah.
Is there that in basketball, like the yips, where guys all of a sudden like?
Not really.
Yeah.
Just sometimes you have like a hitch in your shot.
Are you
I think
sure?
the bigger
Ben
thing.
Simmons? Are you sure?
No, dude. So here's my theory on Ben Simmons, because like shooting's kind of my thing. Whoever told him
He's left-handed.
whoever told him not to shoot with his first year, and he might have just did it on his own, is the dumbest thing ever, because now everyone's like, whoa, he can't shoot, and it's so bad that he won't even take a shot. He would have been better off shooting 3 threes a game, 4 threes a game, making one, shooting 25%, which is horrible, but at least he's shooting them, and then year by year get better.
Right.
I just think so with shooting, and we just had a kid who I hope is going to make a big jump at a high major school with his shooting this year and really have a chance to get drafted. But when he was in high school, he wasn't ready mentally to take every shot seriously, so he wasn't going to become a better shooter. He was going to be an inconsistent shooter. But now, 4 years later, 3 years later, he's ready to lock in and be engaged and understand how he should be shooting. And after every rep, he's calculating, oh, here's what I did, here's what worked, here's what didn't work. And so, like, for Ben Simmons, I don't think he gives a shit whether he's good or not. I don't even think he really likes playing basketball. So I don't think it's the yips. I just think it's him not locking in on
Not
it,
caring as much.
Yeah, exactly.
Got paid and was like, all right, this is what I worked for.
Yeah.
Almost like that. Like I feel because I was a big Ben Simmons fan when he came in the league. So when I see this, it was, for me, it was like, you got paid, and that's what you wanted out of basketball.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be the greatest. Whereas when I see LeBron wanted to be the greatest. You know, you see, even Kevin Durant, you love him or hate him, wants to be the greatest.
Yeah, he just loves hooping.
I love watching Giannis play. I love everything about Giannis.
Yeah.
He is just a hard worker. He's gonna shoot even though he's not a great shooter.
Yeah.
He's gotten better every year. He's never gonna be a 40% 3-point shooter. But
Right.
it's interesting when you say the stuff about, calculating and whatnot. I feel like I see that when I see Steph Curry or Klay Thompson play.
They're
I
locked
almost
in.
see them like calculate, what did I do wrong on that last shot? I'm gonna try to fix it on this next one.
Yeah, because they're engaged and they understand. I just think it's a huge, listen, like the whole Ben Simmons thing, I actually like to talk about like, oh, he doesn't want to be a star. I mean, he wants to be a star, but he doesn't want the responsibility of being a star and working at it. You know what, dude? Like, that's fine. Like, people are who they are.
Yeah.
Not everybody is going to be the leader and a star of a team. The problem is when you command a salary that's even or on par with being a star and all the things that come along, like, you can't have a breakdown. You know what I mean? You can't be insensitive or too sensitive and say, hey, the fans are getting on me. I'm not going to play tonight.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Well,
like, what are we
especially
talking
nowadays.
about?
I don't know Ben Simmons, but they're like, open up your cell phone, search your name, go in
Right.
your comments.
Yeah.
It's a lot to learn to manage.
Yeah, no, it is for sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about like locking in and being focused and engaged, the same thing applies for us in here. And when I talk to kids in here, is I try to get them. Today, for example, there was a kid doing an exercise, and I'm like, "Is that as fast as you can go?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "That's it."
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, boom! I was like, "That's it." Every single rep after that was faster and faster and faster, and it's about doing it with intent. And when when we get kids in here, you see some of them will kind of go through the motions, and they're trying to learn how to move too.
Yeah.
So you got to find that balance between it. But then once that they can move, it's like, okay, move, go,
Right.
faster. Because the only way you're gonna get faster is by doing it faster.
And that's a part of, right? That's a part of them. Like, we try and teach kids how to handle winning, how to handle losing. Like, part of figuring out like what's your workload, like how hard can you go? What does hard work even mean? You know what I mean?
Do you use any data tracking with the USA team in terms of managing workloads?
I have to see. COVID like set us back a little bit. I got to see if they throw anything on them. They might at the training camps, probably not for the bigger mini camps.
Right.
But I'll double check.
That's a
on
big
that.
thing in the NBA though now,
Oh, yeah.
right? The workload management.
Everything is
What are
tracked.
they using? They're using HRV. They're using distance ran.
I don't know exactly, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know that they're tracking everything from on the court to sleep. Everything's tracked and monitored.
And I was listening to, who was it? There was a podcast I was listening to. It was a current NBA player. It wasn't a podcast. It was CJ McCollum.
Yeah.
Was on ESPN talking about how they would tell him and Damian Lillard at the beginning of the season, go through the schedule, pick your designated rest days.
Right.
They'd go through, they'd pick their designated rest days.
Yeah.
That day would come up. CJ would look at Dame, or Dame would look at CJ, and he'd be like, "Are you resting today?" He'd be like, "I'm not
Nah,
resting today."
Dame ain't
So-
resting.
Right. So teams are telling the play, and I think that's where sometimes as fans we get on the players for resting.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's the teams that are telling these players, you have to rest these days.
Yeah, well, it's like now they have data that's like, well, you're more fatigued than usual in the last week. You ran more than usual. Your
Yeah.
heart rate's higher than it usually is.
Yeah.
You're at a higher risk for injury. Let's take a night off.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to LeBron, if I'm taking whatever LeBron says that his body's ready for over
Yeah.
anything the Lakers tell him.
Yeah,
the man
right.
spends so much. Like some of those guys spend so much money
Yeah.
on their bodies. Like I'm going to take what they're telling me, and over what you're telling me.
Yeah, right.
Because I know who they're working with and all this other stuff. And
think-
obviously, they also got to play the game.
I think part of it too, right, is like, especially when you get to the NBA, like the team's worried about the team. I don't know if they're necessarily worried about the individual, right? And so
Right.
like a lot of the NBA guys, they have their personal trainer, they have their nutritionist, they have their on-court guy, because they need to make sure at the end of the day the team can get rid of them at any point, right? So they got to make sure they're doing what's best for them while also fitting in what's best for the team, but also not putting themselves at risk. And the teams are better with that. Like, I can't tell you the amount of NBA games I watch and somebody like tweaks their ankle and like just normal, nothing crazy. And they're like, oh, so-and-so isn't coming back tonight, sprained ankle. And you're like, he would have came, but he could have came back.
You're like, nobody on that.
If it was the playoffs, he would have played.
Yeah, exactly.
If it was what's the Pistons teams, the late 80s,
Oh
90s?
my God, the bad boys.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
even,
yeah.
Nobody's
even-
coming off for
Sprained
that.
ankle. Like, come on,
I
man.
mean, even go back to the early 2000s Pistons team, like
Yeah.
that era.
Oh, the
you
Ben
know?
Wallace,
Allen Iverson rolls an ankle, he ain't coming off the court.
Yeah,
Like,
and you got teams like that now, right? Like the Grizzlies are like that. They're just
The
like
Bucks are
tough.
like that.
The Bucks are like that. You know, it's not.
Giannis hyperextends his knees, but probably shouldn't have played, and
Yeah,
drops 50.
It looked like he literally tore everything in his
Yeah.
knee, and he's like playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so that's part of it too, right? It's like, oh well, there used to be this. Well, nah, there were some teams that were like super soft back in those days too. You know what I mean? So
I mean, the Bulls were soft for a while. I mean, people don't realize that they were soft. That's why they got beat every time by the Pistons. And then eventually they, got the right guys in there. They got Scottie Pippen there and got a new mentality. And it's, you don't see, yes, the NBA is a little softer now than it used to be, but it's, player safety and things like that as well.
Who's your favorite shooter to watch of all time?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you mine. But you're the professionals over here.
I'm a huge Steve Nash guy.
Yeah.
So like he would probably be my favorite. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else, beyond the, obviously you like watching like Ray Allen and Steph. Like I could watch Steph all day. The way Steph moves and the ball's connected to him and he's always on balance is literally crazy. It's on every single movement. He can shoot it. He could drive it. He could pass it. But I would go with Nash for everything, for shooting, for passing, all that.
I was gonna say I always loved watching Ray Allen shoot the ball.
Yeah.
Always loved watching it. The release point, all of that. I also the original Splash brother, Rashard Lewis, was the other one.
Yeah, he was tough.
I loved watching because he was like one of the first tall guys to really be able to shoot it like that. And seeing those two play together was really fun. And everybody forgets Ray Allen was more than a shooter.
Yeah,
and then he kind of molded into just that because as he got older, you can always shoot.
And he's in one of my favorite movies ever. He Got Game.
He Got Game.
Did you guys see that?
I love that movie.
Mike, you never saw
Never
it?
saw
Come
it.
on,
Oh,
bro.
man.
He Got Game is sick.
He Got Game. You got to watch Jesus Shuttlesworth, baby.
Yeah, it's really
I want a
good.
Jesus Shuttlesworth jersey.
I know, seriously.
I used to do NBA Create a Player and make Jesus Shuttlesworth.
Yeah, he used
Swear
to
to
get
God.
buckets too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was it's Denzel. Denzel's in it too.
Yeah, I gotta
It's-
step
it's
up my
tough.
movie
It's
game.
tough.
I'm like,
It's
I'm
a
nice
really
with
good movie.
I'm nice with a TV game right now, but
Yeah.
I
know.
The movie game's not fantastic. No, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight, Steve.
Yeah,
I know
thanks for having me.
we've messaged so much online. I think we
Yeah.
first touched base during COVID.
Yeah.
We were both just like, what the hell's going on right now?
I know.
What do we do?
Trying to figure out, right? It was like everybody was getting different information and like all the gyms, right? Like whether it's basketball gym, weightlifting, like we're all getting screwed.
Because
crazy.
you were categorized the same as us. Who even knows now? Like, what's the categories even?
So it's
fucking
funny
mean?
because we were so our gym in Troy is in Rensselaer County. And so
Oh shit, counties were different. They were like, F it,
yeah,
we're going.
and so Rensselaer County, I think it was their county executive, is like, screw this is crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's the vibe that we got. And so like we tried to feel it out. Like, are we gonna get in trouble if we open just for a little bit? And I think we got like the vibe that like we'd be just fine. So we started slowly, mass distancing. Nobody touches anybody else's
what a
basketball.
wild time. You're like, I touch his basketball, I could die.
Yeah, dude. Think about that. Seriously.
Wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. But yeah, no, it's we've been connected for a long time, so I'm glad I got up here to check out the place. The place looks great.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it.
And I've heard a lot of good things about you. Obviously, I said my niece did your camp, loved it. So I'm sure she'll be back there. So
Awesome.
it was great to see the man behind everything.
Yeah, just to meet somebody else that genuinely cares about the kids for the long term and wants them to be better as not only athletes but people.
Yeah.
And be able to build good relationships, build kids who can handle adversity more and have better empathy and understanding of sports and where that fits into the big picture of life.
Yep.
Hey, tell the people where they can find you out, learn more about what you do, follow you on social media, contact you.
Instagram Steve Dags 0, so STEVEDAGS 0. Twitter's at Dags Basketball, DAGS Basketball, and then the website's just dagsbasketball.com. So we run groups throughout the year, and then summertime and school breaks during the winter. We have our camps and stuff.
Awesome, man. Yeah,
Awesome,
people.
man.
Yeah, check them out, parents who have kids involved in basketball.
Let's get in the gym.
Give them a follow, get in the gym, and let's get to it. So
Yeah.
thanks, Steve, for coming on, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Catch you next time.